Welcome everyone, Christine here with a discussion about Lord Mazdamundi, who, like Teclis, is a significant disappointment in Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires. Actually, I would say Mazdamundi has always been a disappointment as a Legendary Lord. He was designed as a baseline Legendary Lord for the Lizardmen. Personally, I think they could have gone with many different choices for the Lizardmen and released Mazdamundi as the DLC Lord, because what we have gotten with Mazdamundi is, one, not really faithful to who he is in the lore, and two, just the most generic and dull campaign of the Lizardmen, who are one of the most generic and boring races in the entire game. There are some great Lizardmen campaigns out there, Tenowin, Oxyatl. It's interesting, the Skinks are the most interesting ones. Or with the Saurus, you have Gorok. And if you want a more generic campaign, you can always go Krokgar, who came out alongside Mazdamundi, and I would say Krokgar has always been the better campaign out of the two of them. That is my perspective on that. Like, one of them rides a Stegodon, the other rides a Carnosaur. I don't know about you, but I think the Carnosaur is far more interesting when we're talking about it. Now, faction effects-wise, he gets a minus 30% cost to rights, which is irrelevant. He gets a minus 50% construction cost for Star Chambers. Now, okay, the right cost is not irrelevant when you consider like things like the right to Primeval Glory, but it's just not really that important considering the massive cooldown that we're talking about these rights. That's why I say it's meaningless. As for the Star Chamber building, it is just one building over here that he reduces the construction cost by 50%. A building that's less than 2k anyway, so what does it matter? That is the thing about Mazdamundi. Okay, maybe he has a Lord effect that's beneficial. Also, within a game where diplomacy is a really useful tool, Mazdamundi has a harder with diplomacy because he has a minus 10 diplomatic relations with most factions. That's because he wants to wipe out a lot of these factions on the map. Also, it should be added, his quest items are kind of a joke. He does have a really good item, the Cobra Mace, which gives him a much higher chance of stealing a magic item. That's useful. That's about it. The melee attack, the poison attack, the weapon strength, like, I'll be honest, there are better items out there for Mazdamundi to use as a weapon if you can get access to them. Just gonna point that out. If you can get access for the standard, okay, you can argue the standard is useful because you can put it on, like, say, a Saurus Scar Veteran and get melee defense and missile resistance, but that's just a really bad situation with respect to magical items. Like, Lord Croak is much better in this respect. As for his special skill line, he doesn't have one. He has two, like, kind of magic skills. Yes, this does grant him a significant amount of power, including regeneration, terror, control, etc. And he does get Ruination of Cities and Banishment, but these are not necessarily the most powerful spells in the world. I mean, Flame of Asgore compared to Ruination of Cities, I'll take that. I mean, Flame of Asgore, forget actually Flame of Asgore. Itza, anyone? Anyone up for Deliverance of Itza? Just saying that, like, having a powerful magic beat-up stick as a magic user of a Lord is kind of relevant for the Lizardmen when you've got Lord Croak that you can get. I guess you can get away with putting Lord Croak in another army over here, but Lord Croak is generally best suited in another army anyway, so it's kind of meaningless over here. You do have a significant amount of melee capability with your mount, slack, whatever the pronunciation of that. You do have a lot of barrier and missile resistance, so you're kind of like the Drazov of the Lizardmen, except Drazov has a lot more mobility, significant better skill lines, significantly better factions, significantly more powerful spells. Like, Mazdamundi is one of the most powerful magic users in the entire setting, like, by far. Like, the only people to compare with him are kind of Teclis, and even then, no. I'm sorry, Teclis is a pale shadow compared to Mazdamundi. To understand, Mazdamundi is the guy who reshapes continents with his mind. When the Skaven blew up the Warhammer moon in the end times, Mazdamundi saved the planet by destroying giant chunks of that moon as they were about to land on the whole world, saving the Empire in significant portions, delaying the end times. Basically, a lot of the world did get destroyed, but Mazdamundi and Croak actually were able to save a substantial portion of it. And this is not reflected at all in either his Lord effect or his faction effects. Like, his faction effects do not suit a really powerful mage. He doesn't really feel like he's this incredibly powerful magic user. Marafi does have very powerful magic, but crucially, her Lord effects do suit that. She gets sorceresses, she gets a bunch of magical benefits, she's got the good school of magic available to her. I mean, Teclis, you can talk about a really powerful mage with Teclis for all his issues in a campaign, though to be honest, a lot of lords focused on magic do end up feeling subpar because you end up missing the melee ability, though for what it's worth, Mazdamundi does have that. I'm kind of thinking what this campaign could be like, and I'd say like maybe some faction ability where you can influence the world, because that's what Mazdamundi has the power to do with raw magic. Think of what Estancia has. Like, let's use Estancia as a situation. Yes, recent campaign, but Ostankia, for all the issues the Shadow Change, does feel like a powerful mage because she has powerful campaign spells that do have an impact on the world. You can send a Legendary Lord in the middle of Athaloran, for instance. You can put an enormous effect, an enormous negative effect on an entire race on the campaign map that significantly debuffs them. Now, it does, by the point you do get that in a Stankia's campaign, it is finished, but like I would say, the Changeling, Kairos, yes, for all of his issues, Astankia do feel like powerful spellcasters, do feel like they have a significant ability in terms of magic. Mazdamundi feels lacking. Now, that's just what's lacking from a thematic standpoint, if you will, with Mazdamundi, and lacking in terms of power, though to be honest, his campaign is difficult early on, but if you do manage it, is a cakewalk of a campaign. It's not a hard campaign, it's not really something that's gonna like, oh, this is really so challenging. No, it's difficult early on because of Skeggy, and that's it. Okay, so you start in your Hextoatl, you have a gold mine, so you have a good amount of economic potential over here. You start with the ability of recruiting Saurus at tier 2, Saurus Spear, Saurus Warriors. Pro tip, get Saurus Spears, you're going to need them. So you have a minor Slaaneshi faction over here. The only real challenge here is that they're led by Greater Demon of Slaanesh, who's leading the faction, who on turn 2 might attack you. Like, you might have to deal with that faction on turn 2 or turn 3 over here. The best thing you could do is actually ignore that to an extent, because like the Slaaneshi army is not going to be able to hold a candle against your own, and instead just build up the skinks, get the replenishments, King Chief, getting that early on in the campaign is important, going for your settlement, declaring war on Skaven, getting Iron Spike, and getting a defensive alliance with Morathi. And then selling the territories to Morathi. Build barracks in both of them, or at least one of them, you'll get it done. And through that process, or you can wipe out the Slaaneshi faction and then do this, regardless with the secondary army that you're building, because the Skaven garrison will not stand up to a couple of units of Saurus. Regardless, though, what is important in this situation is by helping Morathi take all of this territory, what you're going to create, and also having her declare war on the Skaven, which is quite important, she'll actually march over here on the coastline, take all of this territory, and meet Estancia right here. Because what Estancia tends to do, she wipes out the Dark Elves here, and then she marches on the Ice Rock Gorge. Then she ends up in a war with Morathi. By having Morathi take all of this territory, you ensure that Morathi's armies will be here, they'll get more experience, and they'll win against Estancia. If you have to help Morathi against Estancia do so, it doesn't matter. Basically, if you help Morathi become really powerful in this campaign, she will steamroll everyone. She might steamroll the entirety of Ulthuan, or keep them in check. It's kind of a stupid situation, by the way. I wish to point this out for both Morathi and Mazdamundi in their campaigns, because like Lizardmen and Dark Elves really do dislike each other, but it's like Morathi and Mazdamundi, regardless of who you're playing, are best friends. Hell, this could be a great co-op campaign. Except Mazdamundi sucks, to be honest. Maybe if you're playing on bow, like if one of you were to play on bow, the other one were to play Morathi, that would be a great co-op campaign, though a bit too far away, I'd say. You will struggle in this campaign to even maintain 2 armies. Now, granted, Saurus are expensive. My recommendation, firm recommendation, get the Saurus Old Blood, get the Blessing of Coatzel as quickly as possible, because you're going to want the upkeep benefit for Saurus. And the benefit, though, is you get a lot of experience for a ton of your units, partly through the Right of Ferocity, which gives you that unit experience gain per turn for 5 turns, local recruitment capacity, recruit rank, so you can get some highly experienced armies that will demolish everything. It would be nice to have the Warband upgrade system for the Lizardmen, because it's like just the Saurus with shields, Saurus Warriors with shields. Like, yeah, I really am going to get rid of the Saurus that I have, which, by the way, are pretty durable against range units anyway, because they have a decent level of armor. Yeah, I'm not doing that. Like, Lizardmen as a race are not exactly great, but this is about Mazdamundi. Here's the thing, though. You deal with the Saneshis. You deal with 1 or 2 of the settlements. Like, Marafi will always take Iron Spike on her own. She won't necessarily declare war on the Skaven on her own. So you want to take this settlement at least, even if you don't take Iron Spike. But then you got Skeggi, and Skeggi is just an annoyance. Like, they'll send Marauder champions, they'll send Berserkers against you, but it doesn't matter because they'll lay siege to Hexoatl. I'm going to tell you right here, Hexoatl's garrison, the tier 1 garrison, is significant. Tier 2 garrison is even more so. There is 0 chance any kind of opposing force over here is going to take this element. Even at tier 1, it doesn't matter. Like, basically, as long as you have a couple of units or an army, let alone a full stack, Skeggi can't defeat you. And they also start a war with the colonists over here, who, by the way, are in the lore are Stallion. That's why you can't confederate them as Marcus Wolfhard. It's silly, it's stupid, since they're Empire, but still. Empire in the game. Now, the thing about Skeggi, what's annoying about Skeggi, they have a really powerful garrison. But get this King Chief for replenishment, fight the battles on the field. When the battles of the field lay siege, take the settlement. While you send us, although you could wipe out the Selexi faction, ignore Skeggi, because they'll march on Hexoatl, so just ignore that, give you money, and take the jungles over here before Yanbo does it. Like, yeah, I think Yanbo really made this campaign even worse than it was before, because now you gotta wipe out these greenskins before Yanbo does it, so your best bet is like, yeah, take the Fallen Gates, maybe go over here directly, or ignore that and just go, once you took the Fallen Gates, march on the Saneshis, then march south. You waste a lot of time. Navigation for the jungle for the Lizardmen, who are natives, is not great. And then what do you do? Once you've taken all of this territory, wiped out the colonists, guess what you do? You either fight Yarnbo, or fight Marcus Wolfhard, you fight both, you fight factions that should be your friends. Like, this situation is ridiculous. Look at this situation. You've got the Order Tide right here in theory, so this actually is crap, because and this applies to every faction that starts here, minus Alberg. But be a Mazdamundi on Bow, or Marcus Wolfhard, you end up in this kind of situation where you actually end up having to fight factions that really should be your friends. It's an annoyance. Like, if you're playing Marcus Wolfhard, you at least want to fight Alberic. You might also want to go north to deal with Mazdamundi one way or another, because, yeah, you can race Yanbo for that. Do so, then march north, deal with the greenskins before he does, then with the Imperial supply system, get a bunch of units, take on Mazdamundi before he becomes a major threat, win that battle, take all of this territory, or ignore it. But even if you ignore it, it's still very, very beneficial to wipe out Alberg. It's such a silly situation. Like, we have this situation in Lustria right now where we've got literally the Order Tide in Lustria right now. The only one who's kind of like on his own and vulnerable is Gorok, because he's got Clan Pestilent, he's got Rakarth, he's got Luther Harkon. Fun fact, he can potentially win all of this on his own. Tenuin may be in a bit vulnerable position, but still, like, consider this. This is turn 25. I've achieved long campaign victory conditions by turn 20, quite often. I've only taken 12 different settlements in this campaign, because you're spending so much time, 30 turns, just taking all these settlements. This is fast for Mazdamundi. Like, consider this. I've taken these 3 provinces. There's a decent level of territory. Now, obviously, I took this one settlement in this campaign, not Iron Spike. I wasn't able to beat Marafi in that case. It depends on the RNG. But it just doesn't really feel fulfilling. Like, yeah, you find the most interesting battle in this campaign, in this experience, this awful experience, is fighting the Keeper over here, the Great Redeemer of Slanesh, the Keeper of Secrets, for the battle. That's it. The only interesting aspect in this entire campaign is the early game battle. Everything else, yeah, once you get a Lord Croak, you've won. Like, essentially. No, you've won the moment you've dealt to Skeggy. Or even before that, once you've dealt to the Slaneshi. And then you're just left with the annoyance of rebellions, having low income in your settlements, triggering rebellions deliberately. By the way, having a campaign where you want to trigger rebellions in a deliberate fashion for the sake of money and nothing else is such a Warhammer 2 mechanic that I had hoped we had moved past that kind of dilemma. And yes, there's a lot of units here. Guess what? A Saurus Death Stack wins against all of this. The only thing that might stop me here are the Spearmen or Halberdiers to some extent, but no. Not gonna happen. In fact, the Autoresolve is quite ridiculous in this situation because it's like, you realize it's Mazdamundi right here, right?
The Dragon Emperor's eye
it's a laughable situation to be dealing with during the course of this campaign that just honestly doesn't make sense. The only beneficial situation in Mazdamundi's campaign is that you get the massive massive upkeep benefit with Temple Guard. So if you're confederating him, it is worth it, and just stick a Temple Guard army with him. But like for Lizardmen campaigns, it's like, yeah, there are much better campaigns. And there are much better races. You want to play a campaign as Lustria, I can think of half a dozen campaigns, or a dozen campaigns actually. Every other campaign that's in Lustria is better than him. Maybe with the exception of Luthor Harkon, though even then I would probably make an argument. Because at least Luthor has something going for him. In the sense that he has to actually fight battles and win them, and has a difficult situation on his hands. You may have a couple of 2-3 turns of the campaign that are tricky. The rest is just plain nonsense. So I don't think this campaign was ever that great, to be honest with you. Like, this campaign is the reason I didn't really bother with the Lizardmen all that much in Warhammer 2. Keep in mind, funnily enough, I didn't really play that much Lizardmen, and yet I owned every single DLC for them even before I was focusing as a YouTuber on Total War Warhammer. I mean, minus Rome 2 when that came out, when I did a lot of content, but like just on my own for the most part, I bought every Lizardmen DLC and I couldn't care to play them, even in Warhammer 2. I never really understood the passion certain people have. I guess, yeah, I mean, dinos. Right, the idea of a dino death ball is, I understand, very appealing to a lot of people. I get that. I comprehend that very, very well. But I've always felt that the Lizardmen never lived up to that. And that's discussing the situation from the context of Warhammer 2. Let alone the context of Warhammer 3. In Warhammer 3, they've just been left behind in a fairly substantial way, and I don't think they're going to ever recover from the really questionable design decisions that Creative Assembly has made with them. That's where I stand on that subject. Christine here, signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications. I do think that the Lizardmen could be an interesting race. I mean, it's like freaking dinosaurs, the army. How do you fuck that up? Like, I don't know. I really don't know how you screw that up. But Creative Assembly has managed to make dinosaurs riding dinosaurs boring. I can't explain it. I mean, it just... The problem is... I'll explain the very simple issue. The issue is... In a Lizardman campaign inherently, everything is slow, right? Your recruitment is slow because you only got 2 recruitment slots, which, by the way, wasn't the case in Warhammer 2. You have very slow recruitment. You have slow growth. Construction takes a long time. Yes, there's research that does improve it, like, you know, construction costs, construction time for resource-producing buildings, all that kind of stuff. Yes, there are ways of improving this. But, like, when I play this campaign... Like, if you want to play a campaign... Like, if you want to play a campaign in Lustria, go 10-1. Like, easy mode, get a lot of benefits to overcome a lot of the inherent issues. If you want to play a campaign about world domination as a Lizardman, simply play. Simply go play Axiatel. If you want to, or even Nakai. Like, if you want to go roaming around the world, because at least Nakai has an enormous number of heroes. Like, if you want to experience the hero Doomtide as a Lizardman, because they have fun heroes, like Saurus, all that skanks. Those are fun. You can go with Nakai. If you want to build a massive Lustrian Empire, Gorak, Tenuan, just far better campaigns. Like, this is, and if you just want to go with a different playstyle than all the rest, because like all the rest are about skinks and Saurus, you can play tic-tac-toe. Though I'm not too fond of him either. Because it's like, oh, he gets a buff on flying units. Yeah, that's cool, I guess. Doesn't really work that well, but hey, you know, cool factor, right? I mean, that's the thing. Mazdamundi does not have the cool factor. Like, at all. Like, the others, at least, it's like you've got dinosaurs that are acting like fighter bombers. That's the thing of Tic-Tac-Toe's campaign that kind of makes it interesting and amusing to deal with.
Fearless.
But you got nothing. In this one, you just got flat out nothing that's anywhere as interesting as that. And I would say that's the really sad part, like, of Mazdamundi. I don't know if we're ever gonna get the rework for him. I wonder if there's, like, I haven't checked. Like, there's obviously always mods for these kind of things, but the way I'd imagine Mazdamundi could work a lot better is, like, you look at what Siege has in terms of global, in terms of campaign effects, that's basically magic. That's kind of the thing that Mazdamundi could use. Though, changing ways is kind of lame, honestly. At least it's something, though. Or you look at Estankia, you know, a lot of issues with the Estankia's campaign, but she does have some cool effects. You just don't have that going for Mazdamundi. Anyway, Costin, signing out. Stay tuned for more.